Amy, thank you so much for taking some time to speak to me. I am loving the show so far.
Yay! Thank you.
So I know you've had a little bit of experience with the saga beforehand, having been actually a participant in it. But what is it like taking the reins?
Oh my gosh. It was daunting at first. It's like, with Sagas of Sundry, Ivan was at the helm, so those are really big shoes to fill. And I guess I felt really supported knowing that all the players were not only, excellent and talented comedians and performers, but also my friends. So to have been chosen to lead this team was, oh, just a feather in my cap. It just felt so good.
Awesome. Now, I know when it comes to things that you love in your modern day and you start doing it for business, that can really kind of like take the fun out of it. Do you still find yourself enjoying D&D like you did before it became like a part of your job?
Yes. Yes. The short answer is yes. There have been times like in my life in the past decade where I've been like, I need to take a break from D&D and who knows when I'll play it again. And those breaks last a matter of weeks. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you just are who you are and you can't fight it. It's very strange. You bring up such a good question because I have thought about that too. I'm like, oh, this is my job, but is it a game? Is it social? Is it for friends? And the lines are so blurred that I've come to just realize this is just part of my life. It's just going to be, it's what I've played for 20 years. I'll probably play it for another 50 until I die. And sometimes it's just in your bones. And it's nice to know every time I jump into a game as a player or a DM, like, oh yeah, I know this. It feels like coming home every time. Because it has been the game has been so formative for me as both a game to play and then as a writer and as an actor and a social party.
A lot of the factors, of course, of this show is different than a regular D&D game. I know there's a little bit of prep, and it is in like a filming process with, I'm sure, maybe probably a tiny bit of editing. I don't see any in the actual video so far,
Wait,
but
a tiny bit of what?
editing. But I don't
Oh,
see anything
yes,
in the
yes.
video so far. But what I wonder is, does this specifically fill the itch of wanting to play a D&D game, or does it feel like it's a different beast?
Oh, it definitely feels yeah, it definitely feels like playing a regular D&D game. I always say like with shows or at home games, my main goal is to have the players laughing as much as possible. So whether they're doing it on their own and I'm playing the mom referee character, like, guys, you shouldn't be doing that, and they're like laughing because they're pushing my limits or whatever, or whether I'm providing the comedy, like it's normally a mixture of both, to be honest. But yeah, the goals and the objectives are always the same. I've had different shows where they've had different limitations as far as timing and season arcs and when things needed to end. But overall, that's kind of fun to fit into a kind of a narrative structure. But at the end of the day, I always leave just so much room for what I call just shenanigans. And I'm so glad I do because I'm always so surprised. And Goblin Mode is no different. After episode 2, I had really planned episode 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then at the end of episode 2, I asked them, like, hey, I wonder where you're thinking of going next. And they chose a place that I did not think they were going to go. And at
Typical
the
GM move. Typical GM move.
yes,
Where are we
yes.
going? Where are we going with this, guys?
Where do you
Oh,
think?
there?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that geography. And so, because it's a show, I had planned out a lot of the map, a lot of the geography, and I had ideas, but they chose a place that I was like, what? Why would you go? Whatever. But when I look back, I had kind of secluded that or secured that for episodes 16 and 17. And it's like, okay, we're pivoting. And that felt really good too, because I had no time to railroad them. I really, well, I don't know when this is coming out, but I'll just tell you. I thought they were going to go after the Gallantlings that decimated their dungeon,
Yeah.
and they didn't. They didn't, because if you watch the last episode, Tippy gets poisoned, and they're like, we need to go to a place where it's friendly to us, or at least we have a chance of curing him. I think that became the main motivation. But at the end of the day, I had chosen, it was like the Desolation, which is where the Galantlings probably went. And then there was a mention of where the Fiends Union came from, Nak Brecca, and they were like, yeah, screw the Fiends Union, and also we got to save Tippy, and so we're gonna do that. I'm like, oh, because they interacted with them and they hated them more, I guess. It was
Yeah.
so bizarre.
It's, yes, I watching the first couple episodes, I can honestly say there were a couple moments where it looked like there might even have been a TPK if they had kept going a certain direction. And it was like, because they start off so low, and so
Yeah.
like when they're pushing the boundaries, do you feel like as a GM or in the show in general that you just kind of have to let them sometimes hurt themselves so bad because you don't want to railroad the story?
There, gosh, I was threading the needle. I'll say for the most of the time I was threading the needle of going, well, these are characters that have art done and we paid for that. So, like if they die, then we're out, I don't even know, it's hundreds of dollars. Like definitely we're kind of, yeah, we're hurting the budget a bit. But also you'll see later there are some choices made where my brain breaks and I'm like, I I actually call like a stop down because I'm like, I need to ask the producers, like, like, can this happen? Like, are we all cool with this? And right now it's all lighthearted. I will say, without, I don't think giving too much away, but as with most D&D games, there's a huge tone shift around the mid season, which is really cool, around episode 10. And it gets pretty gnarly. So for the most part, yes, they're off doing their stuff. It's pretty lighthearted. It's pretty, when I say rule of cool, I mean cartoon rules. It's pretty
Yeah.
cartoony. And then as they're finding their agency in a relatively safe space, and then it just gets bigger and bigger. Like the world becomes what it would be no matter who they are, whether they're the evil minions or they're the adventuring heroes, which the world is dark, like the gods are gone and everyone's having to deal with that. And as they find their own agency, they're going to have to deal with it too. So yes,
Did
there is punishment.
you feel like naming the show Goblin Mode might have influenced how like off the wall they go sometimes?
Well, I mean, I wish I could take credit for all of that. I didn't even come up with the premise. They pitched Dan pitched the premise to me. He let me run with that, but the producers had kind of sold it on Sagas of Sundry, Goblin Mode. That being said, yeah, naming like giving it a name of a show Goblin Mode is going to incite some serious mischief and shenanigans and caprice, like we're just gonna do whatever the heck we want until, I guess, the referee steps in, and step in I do.
Of the first like 3 episodes, what was got to be your most outlandish thing you were not prepared for them to do?
The first 2 episodes, oh my gosh, I was so panicked. So I I was so panicked when Fibs disguised self into Unzug.
Mm,
So
mm,
I knew Unzug is dead and gone. Like I knew
yeah.
that, which gave me a lot of leeway to not think too much about him, and his description. And I mean, I thought a little bit about it, but it gave me free range to go, like, you haven't seen. I also told them they hadn't really seen him, or they'd seen like the back of his head as he walked away or whatever. And then he comes in and he starts doing a voice, and I'm like, oh, and then he's like, Amy, what is Unzug's voice? And I'm like, yeah, what is this like guy who's like not in the picture? What's he got going on? That was so creative, and it did make me have to think on the spot. It's like you plan out all your NPCs, and then they talk to two of them, and then they're so obsessed with the NPC that you didn't plan. So
The one that has no
you roll with
name,
it.
and you go, "That's how we get Boblin the Goblin."
Yes, 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 exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Jim, the pimply dwarf. Anyway, he's just over there, and they're like, we love pimples. You're like, what?
So with all the voices that you do, is there a voice that you love the most out of the series so far?
I will say so far with Mimsy, that voice is inspired by the Actually kid. Like, actually, I I'm on the Ferris wheel with my grandpa, and actually, like he's at the fair or whatever, and you know the Actually kid. So
You
that was
definitely
just
feel it with them because like Mimsy's all like kind of wants to be loved though still. Like there's some like he wants to be included, the whole wanting to be involved in the breakout conversation was
yes.
just so like I felt so bad with how much they were hating on Mimsy because Mimsy just wanted to be part of it.
Well, he appeared in our session 0, and he was very formative in their up and coming, and like we played how they kind of got recruited. Um very they got recruited very roughly. They just got dumped in there. Like they were in a cage and the skeletons and bones and other goblins and whatever were just dumped into the lair. And yeah, so Mimsy defected, and that's why they're like mad at Mimsy. But yeah, like is he a lovable character? Like I made all of them kind of sound, like they're all nasally and annoying, on purpose. So but yeah, I really like doing Mimsy, but I also loved Thor because that was kind of a nice guy, just a union worker that it's saw the value in other people. But yeah, Mimsy takes the cake from the Actually kid voice inspiration.
There was a really interesting shift between episode 1 and 2 with regards to the union. In the first episode, everyone was very anti-union in the group, and in the second episode, there almost seems like all of a sudden now the players are pro-union and like, why are you anti-union to certain people?
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
was
it
that
was
like a
very
course correction? Like, do we really want this message, guys?
I loved that. It was, yeah, I don't know that it was conscious, but it was like we're not so very clearly we're not against unions. We're against the leadership of this union.
Yeah,
And I had always planned for there to be other NPCs that were more likable. It's just that yeah, the people who were going to go to down to Unzug's lair initially were going to be yeah, Deb the Grell and Mimsy, and they just happen to be the worst of the worst.
you know,
So
I kind of feel like that still kind of works though when you're playing the minions of the bad guy that you would not like the union, right?
oh, it's so weird too to have like, but you guys are minions and you guys are minions. And so who's the worst minion and in what way? It's more of a nuanced, like gaslighting, manipulative kind of way as opposed to pure evil, because everyone's pure evil and everyone's, I guess, torturing people. And we just say, like, oh yeah, this is how it is. So who is worse here? It's really hard to tell, except until you start like yeah, actively going like leaning into bureaucracy as opposed to human compassion. That's where the line gets drawn, I think.
And out of this session, how many episodes is it already done? Are you basically still working on this
Oh
season,
yeah,
or
it's done. We shot 20 episodes in about 6 weeks back in April and May.
okay, awesome. And is there plans for maybe a return with these characters in the
Oh, I hope
future?
so. We don't know yet. We don't know yet. I guess Legendary will be deciding that, or like the Nerdist Geek and Sundry situation will be deciding that. But yeah, fingers crossed for sure.
And what's the longest game you've ever played?
Well, it was as
Longest
a
campaign?
player. Yeah, I played a 4-year game in college, and we got up to I think levels 15 or 16, and then things started falling apart in the party because I was a rogue, and someone took the leadership feat and got an assassin as their kind of minion, and that started stepping on my toes, and my character started acting out. And but everyone was supportive of me. They were also acting out. They were like, why would you do this? Like you're taking like this person's role. And then oh, but even worse than that, someone revealed after like 3.5 years that they were a changeling and not who they said they were. And so there was a lot of distrust, not among the friends, but in the party. Everyone was just like, wait, what? So we had to restart. We just decided to restart because we were like, we all like have so many feelings about this. It's actually a
I
weird
mean,
game now.
sometimes it's easier to just take the character you're playing and cast them aside and put a different one in, especially
Yes.
because you those characters take life and agency. they have feelings, and you're like, well, he never would do that, so I can't do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I know you get like some people who are like, oh, okay, player, yeah, you could never do that. And there's like those elements of like what you have to do for the group activity and what you want. And so sometimes it's just like, okay, this character goes to the side then, and I just plays a different one entirely now.
You got it. Yeah, man. So that, yes, that's what happened. But yeah, 4 years.
Wow. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I love the show so much. I can't
Oh,
wait to
good.
watch more. And now I do know you had another project earlier this year. It was a D&D Betches. I don't
Yes.
want to pronounce it inappropriately. Did you take? I didn't get to see it yet because I don't know where I can actually watch it yet. Do you know where you can watch it?
Um, no is the short answer. It was a live play, and so I think Stephanie recorded it, but I'm not sure where she put it. It was so that was like she had told her Patreon or Discord or Twitch or like one part of her community, she raised some money and was like, if I raise enough money, I'm gonna put on a Hollywood Fringe play. She raised enough money and then we were off to the races.
I love Hollywood Fringe Festival. They're so awesome. But hopefully one day we can see it because it sounds really fun. It reminds me a lot of things like Gamers, and Gamers Focus
Yeah,
Rising. Um,
yes.
was there anything like that when you were younger that gave you inspiration that led you towards D&D in general?
D&D in general. Well, I always and still do read fantasy novels almost exclusively, and including, all the Tolkien. When I got to college on my first day, my a friend of mine was in my dorm, or a new friend that I had made was in my dorm and knew that I was a theater acting major and saw 9 Lord of the Rings posters without exaggeration, plus 2 Star Wars posters. And that was my room decoration. And he did the math and goes, "Have I got the game for you?" And that night I joined their group, which they only had 2 players at the time. So I was the third player. And it was off to the races from there. So it's hard to say, like, I can definitely see the influences from my past. It's just that I had kind of a a hero's adventure, like a guide, the guide who like said, "Oh, this is who you are," and then planted me in there. And and during college
Deciphered the
we
clues.
Yes, yes. I play during college. I started at 3.5 and then I joined another group at the same time and we played second edition because this was a game with professors and it was very much like, no one tell anyone that we're playing this game. One, fraternizing with the students. Two, D&D is embarrassing. And so I didn't tell anybody for a while until, yeah, at some point I remember I like extroverted it. I volunteered the information during like a recruitment event, and like the professor, a different professor came to me afterwards and was like, "That was so brave. You told all of those recruits that you play D&D." And I was like, "Okay, I guess that's brave." Yeah, because it was embarrassing. It was like something that you didn't do. But
Taking
look at us now.
such a tonal shift in society, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the
Not to
very
mention 20s playing Madison Square Garden. So who's cool? Who's cool
right.
now?
And then the last question I have for you: a lot of people considering the idea of D&D as therapy, and me personally, play therapy was a big facet in my childhood growing up. Do you believe that there's a place for therapy in D&D, or do you think that it kind of muddles the gameplay?
No, there better be therapy. Yeah, it's storytelling. So I think storytelling just in general is therapy. I think art is therapy. I think creation is therapy. I think the opposite of depression is creation. So uh if there's not a psychological, emotionally intelligent element in your D&D game, like what are we even doing here?
It should test the boundaries.
Yeah, it should make you feel things. I mean, and not in a way that's contrived or manipulating people's emotions, but if you're really playing a storytelling game, if you're really telling a story and doing real improv and sunk in, I mean, I just challenge you not to have those emotional experiences anyway.
Okay, thank you so much. We can't wait to watch all the rest of the episodes. And of
Yay.
course, see you in all of your next projects. I'm sure I'll see you on Dropout again in the near future too.
Oh, good. You're a Dropout fan. Oh my God. Oh my God. I
Since
love knowing
since
where
College
people,
Humor.
yeah, yes. I love knowing where people come from. And I will say, like, there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe this might shift how people know me. Not in, I can't control that, but at the moment when people know me, they're like, do the face. And I love that. Like, that is so funny to me that that's how, like, there are worse ways to be known on the internet than just being generally delightful slash delighted. And I'm curious to see if Goblin Mode will move the needle, but I don't know. I still watch those breaking news episodes.
Oh yeah, that was my
um
first introduction to you, by the way, and it was great.
it is great, and I watch it when I'm feeling depressed too, and I'm like, this is fucking good content, y'all. Like, I'm happy with this.
Oh yes, and thank you again, and
Yes, thank you.
hopefully we can talk again in the future.
I love that. Bye, Eric.
Bye.